fellow guardians. Alright, so today I'm going to be ranking all warlock subclasses 9 to 1, and I'm going to do it based off PvP and how good they are in PvP, and potentially what to do to buff the weaker ones. So right now on my list I have Top Tree Dawnblade as ninth place. Now, understand that you can do good with any of these trees, any tree at all, any subclass you can do good with. I'm not saying this is you can't do good with this or this is terrible. I'm just saying that for me, this is my personal least favorite. And that's another thing to keep in mind is this is my personal list for PvP. Now, with Wing Sun, it's really hard for me to shoot people midair because I'm used to just stopping, not continuous gliding or gliding downwards and shooting people. So that makes it really hard for me to shoot people. But Heat Rises is a pretty good perk if you get it to proc, and so is Icarus Dash. Swift Strike is pretty good as well, but just because of this one perk, it ruins the whole subclass for me. Icarus Dash, I think it would be better if you get two of them, almost like Twilight Garrison in Destiny 1, two evades and air, and I think that would make the subclass actually a lot better. Coming in 8th place, we have Bottom Tree Stormcaller. Now this is the one that gives you Arc Soul and grants faster Rift energy. And now all these perks are good because perks aren't meant to usually do bad things, but it's just this one is outperformed by almost everything else. The fact that you have to place down a Rift to get an Arc Soul is pretty bad because it makes you want to use your Rift more dangerously than cautiously because you're just looking to use your Rift as soon as you can to get that Arc Soul. Landfall is pretty good, but it's only great at clearing out mobs of enemies or supers, people already in supers, and even then, it might not be able to one-shot. I think for this one, you can buff it by letting Landfall do the blinding effect that it used to do in Destiny 1 and kind of stun opponents. That way you can get more of a fighting chance against everyone instead of popping it, doing some damage, and getting killed. Because that's one of the things is you have to use it around people, and if you don't kill all the people, you're going to get killed right away. The other thing is I think that Arc Soul may need a little bit of a longer time. I'm not exactly sure how you could buff something like that. Because, like I said before, it makes you in dangerous situations, and that's something you don't want to put yourself in this game, is in a dangerous situation. Okay, so coming up next is going to be the Bottom Tree Voidwalker. Remember, as I said, you can do good with any of this. This is known as the Devour perk, and, well, the Nova Bomb on this one, I find it very hard to use, especially after using Top Tree. I find it very difficult and weird to use. I think Devour is a good perk because you get a kill, you get your health back, and you get some of your grenade back. The issue is you use up a grenade to do that, and then you gotta keep using your grenades, and a lot of times I like to use grenades to kill other people. Yes, you can get a melee kill to go ahead and proc it, but I think the easier way is to use a grenade. The other issue I think I find with this is it's too slow. So this was really good back when it was 4v4 and there were no snipers and shotguns. That's when this was a really good. And I think as everything else got better and everything else went up with the new meta, this subclass never really changed to adapt to this new meta. Okay, so coming up next in fifth place, we have Well of Radiance. Well is very good if it's used correctly. The empowering melee, I find it to be a little bit underwhelming. But the fact that Benevolent Dawn and Divine Protection, all of that synergizes so well, puts this above the other two, in my opinion. I love putting down a rift, then throwing a grenade out. The other issue I find with this is a lot of times when someone uses it, they don't look at the team, but they look at only affecting themselves. And when you gotta play this, you gotta think of your teammates before yourself. So that's another issue I find with when people use this subclass. When I use this subclass, I try and throw it down where the majority of people are because I want them to have their shield. And that's how this is supposed to be played. I also do the same with throwing down a rift. I put it down so everyone can get that advantage. And that way I get my grenade back quicker. And then you throw down another grenade, and it synergizes super well. Same with the melee though. You can get synergizing with the melee. Don't get me wrong. It's harder to, in my opinion, than the other two. Well, the Radiance itself is good as long as the other team doesn't have their supers, because once you put it down and the other team has their supers as well, it's basically an invitation for them to go kill you right away with their supers. And so that makes it really hard to use, but every now and then I put it down right at the right time, and especially with a bow and arrow, you can get one-shot headshots with some of them, and it can be very devastating. Up next, we have the Slova Bomb class. Now, this is another Voidwalker class. It's the top tree one, and I mentioned before I like this one more than bottom tree. That's because this one tracks, and that is a very, 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 very good for killing people. The issue I do have with this one, though, is the synergizingness, synergize is not there. I'm sorry, I don't know how to say that. Synergizing is not there for this one. It's just basically blow up stuff, blow it up big, make other things blow up, and blow it up. Blow it all up. And so, after a while, you may feel like you're running out of your abilities, such as your melee, such as your grenade. But that's not to say you can't use a exotic and get it back, such as the exotic helmet right here called Nazareth Sin. You can keep killing people with Void and getting your grenade back. It just takes a little bit longer than some of the other subclasses. Okay, next up we have Chaos Reach. So, it's interesting. With this one, I like every perk it has, except for the super. So the super, in my opinion, it's really weird to use in Crucible. It just, the angle you're shooting is really hard for me to use it. Ball of Lightning is one of the best melees on Warlock because you shoot it out and it goes for a pretty far distance. Same with Pulse Wave. I mean, Pulse Wave in competitive and private matches 3v3, any of that, it is really good. Even in 6v6, don't get me wrong, it is one of the best perks I believe in this whole game for your movement, for your just your movement and ground play in general. It keeps you up. And Ionic Traces are also very good because this basically just lets you have your Rift, your grenade, and your melee up constantly. So this is a very good subclass. I wish they would buff Chaos Reach so you can have a better angle, maybe even make it first person when you're shooting. Okay, so now going into our top three, we have Nova Warp. Nova Warp is that one class that got super strong and then super weak because they nerfed it too hard, and now it's at a really good spot in my opinion. It isn't the best for Warlock, but in my opinion it is the best Voidwalker class. If you're going to use one, especially in competitive, I would say this is probably the best one to use. That's because Handheld Supernova. Handheld Supernova is amazing in any 1v1 situation. Competitive, if you take out one person, that can be very crucial to the whole team. So Handheld Supernova is very good, and so is Nova Warp. Well, the super is very good. The super sometimes feels a little bit weird, or it takes too long to be able to charge it up, but if you can go in tight corners or tight areas and blow up, it can deal the whole team damage. Atomic Breach is pretty good for those unexpected guardians. If they kill you and they think you're safe and you already hit them with it and then they blow up, it's always funny to see that. But even then, you can push them back, and sometimes I push them off the edge, or sometimes I push them back into their whole team, and I get multi-kills with it, and it's very, very good and funny. And Dark Matter, that synergizes very well with Handheld Supernova, especially when you have Controverse Hold, which can give you a random amount of grenade charge, grenade energy back. And that makes this whole class number 3, in my opinion, better than the other 2 void ones. Now, number 2 and number 1 are very close, but number 2 I put Dawnblade, bottom tree. Now, don't get me wrong, I love this tree. I play it all the time. I just think the other one's better, but for now, we'll talk about this one. In melee is okay. You strike an enemy, and it causes them to burn, and it causes them to burn them and cause them to explode. So the explosion doesn't always come in super good handy. It's not the same as the Void, the Nova Warp melee, but it can be useful at the same time. Fated for Flame, basically, your super, it tracks your enemies, and it is very good. It is very, very good. Like, you can shoot it from very far, and it still tracks. It's definitely one of the most devastating perks in it for a super in the game. Phoenix Dive is okay, I guess. I forget to use this actually a lot, to be honest. But definitely a good perk if you're in the middle of there and you say, oh crap, someone's aiming at my head. You can go down, heal yourself, and when Daybreak is active, you can go down and unleash a giant burning explosion. I don't know if it one-shots Guardians. It might. I don't think I've ever one-shot a Guardian with it. Like I say, I sometimes forget I even have this perk. But this is also one of the best perks you can have. It basically just extends Daybreak with each kill. And that makes it super deadly because, I mean, you get a longer super. And especially when the super tracks. So you just keep killing and you keep tracking them. You can wipe a whole team pretty easily with this super. And that's why I have it at number 2. But at number 1 we have Top Tree Stormcaller. So this was just recently buffed. Arc Web now changed back and forth in continuous damage as long as they're standing next to each other. And that compared with, well, any of these grenades actually, is very deadly. If they're standing next to each other, you can wipe out a full team. Not a full team in competitive, about 4 Guardians, maybe even 5 if you're lucky, with the Pulse Grenade. Chain Lightning, basically you just hit them and it chains back and forth once again. I've got triple kills with this melee. It is very deadly as well. Transcendence, so basically with full grenade and melee energy, your Storm Trance super lasts longer and fully restores health. This allows you to be able to go into a full group of enemies with the Storm Trance and be able to kill them because they think they almost have you. You get full health and then they're surprised. An Ionic Blink, basically you just teleport when in Storm Trance, which, I mean, it's very good because I've never been killed in the super because I just blink when they're trying to shoot me and they get confused and then you hit them, and it's one of the best movements in the game in my opinion. So Transcendence, it also makes you super from about average, it adds about 5 seconds more. And if you have the helmet, my bad, if you have the helmet, I forget the name of it, it's called this one, Crown of Tempest, my bad, it makes it even longer, and it's about 30 seconds with Crown of Tempest, which is pretty insane if you ask me. So the reason I have this as number 1 over Bottom Tree, Sunsinger, or Dawnblade, is because it has more neutral game as well as 2 of the best super perks. So this has 2 very good super perks and very good just neutral play with grenades and melees. And not to mention Arc Web, if you web them up, then you get your super back, which is really good. See, this one, it only revolves mostly around super, but your neutral play is not nearly as good. So that's actually why I have that as number 1. So, yeah, so that is actually my pick for the top subclasses for Warlock. If you want to see me do a PvE one of these, or maybe do another class, like Hunter or Titan, just let me know down in the comments. I'd be glad to